Because of you, we're a disgrace to the entire community, and you're just like your traitor brother!
Then better a traitor than a slave!
After listening, subscribe, leave a like, and write a comment before continuing. Sarah Miller stood by the window of her small attic, watching as the first rays of sun painted the sky in rosy gold. Her long dark hair, which by day was always tucked beneath a white cap, spilled over her shoulders. In her hands she held a book, Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, a gift from her brother Jakob, who had left the community 3 years ago. Sarah knew that reading such books was a sin. The elders said English novels poisoned the soul, planted improper desires, and pulled the heart away from God. But she couldn't stop. Every word on those yellowed pages was a window into a world where people could choose. Choose whom to love. Choose who to be. Choose whether to stay or to go. Sarah, her mother's sharp voice carried up from downstairs. The cows won't milk themselves. What are you doing up there? Quickly shoving the book under the mattress, Sarah pulled on a plain dark blue dress, braided her hair, and secured her cap. Looking at herself in the small cracked mirror, the only one allowed in the house, she saw a face she'd known all her life, but that lately felt like a stranger's. Large brown eyes that always hid too many questions, thin lips that rarely smiled, pale skin the sun had hardly touched. Isaac Fisher woke at 4 in the morning, as always. His room on the second floor of his parents' house was austere, even by Amish standards: a wooden bed, a single chair, a hook for clothing, and a small window. No decorations, nothing extra. He held to the principle of Jellison-height humility and submission more strictly than many in the community. In 2 months, he would be asked to become a deacon. It was a great honor for a 27-year-old man. Ordinarily, such a role went to older men. But Isaac's father, Bishop Samuel Fisher, saw true devotion in his son. Isaac never asked unnecessary questions, never rebelled like other boys his age during Rumspringa, the period when youth could sample the outside world before baptism. But Isaac knew the truth about himself, a truth he couldn't tell anyone. Inside him lived another man, the one who sometimes, at night, when everyone slept, looked at the stars and asked himself whether God had really meant life to be like this, whether every thought, every desire was truly a sin. Lately, those thoughts had grown louder, and the reason was Sarah Miller. He had noticed her a year earlier at Sunday service. She sat with the other unmarried girls, but something about her was different. The others lowered their eyes, sang hymns meekly, never looked at the men. Sarah looked. Not brazenly, not provocatively, but her gaze was alive, curious, filled with a quiet kind of defiance. One day their eyes met, and Isaac felt something he could not later name. It was like recognition, as if two lonely souls adrift in a sea of rules and prohibitions had suddenly seen each other. From that day on, he tried not to look at her. He tried to pray harder, but the more he prayed, the more often he saw her face in the dark. The events that changed everything began on Wednesday. That day, Elder Jonas King, the community treasurer, discovered that $3,200 had gone missing from the common fund. For a community where cash was rarely seen and most trade was barter, it was a huge sum money gathered over a year to repair the school. The news spread faster than the wind. By noon, a council had gathered at the home of Bishop Samuel Fisher, the 5 eldest men of the community, and Isaac as the deacon-to-be. It happened between Sunday and Tuesday, Jonas said, his hands trembling. The funds were at my house in a locked chest. Someone knew where the key was. Who had access to your home? Bishop Samuel asked, his voice calm but firm. My family, and Jonas fell silent, clearly unwilling to continue. Speak, brother. Jakob Miller was at my place on Monday. He had come back from town and asked to meet, said he wanted to return to the community. I went to the kitchen to call my wife and left him in the room, the one with the chest. The silence that followed was heavy. Everyone knew Jakob Miller's story, the boy who left during Rumspringa and didn't come back, who chose the English world, who refused baptism, whom his father cursed from the pulpit and his mother mourned as if dead. Where is he now? Samuel asked. Gone. He disappeared Tuesday morning. My wife saw him walking toward town with some kind of sack. Then it's clear, one of the elders said. The English always come back only to steal something. But Isaac frowned. Something about the story didn't fit. He had known Jacob before he left. Jacob was a rebel, but not a thief. And if he truly meant to steal the money, why alert anyone to his visit? Why make himself the prime suspect? We need to speak with his family, Isaac said. They may know something. Samuel looked at his son with approval. Good, Isaac, you'll go to the Millers. Learn what you can, but be careful. Don't accuse anyone hastily. We seek truth, not revenge. Isaac came to the Miller farm that evening. The sun was already sinking, casting long shadows from the barn and the house. Daniel Miller, Sarah's father, met him by the shed. He was a stocky man of about 50, with a thick gray beard and tired eyes. Isaac, he said with a nod, I know why you're here. Come in. They sat on the porch. Daniel's wife, Rebecca, brought coffee and slipped quietly back into the house. Isaac noticed Sarah near the henhouse. She was gathering eggs, but every so often she glanced their way. Jacob was here, Daniel began without waiting for questions. He came Sunday evening, said he was tired of the world, that he wanted to come back. His voice broke. I wanted to believe him. God knows how much I wanted to. What happened? He stayed 2 days, talked a lot about the city, how hard it is there. But something was off. He was anxious, kept looking over his shoulder. Then Tuesday morning, I woke up he was gone. He left a note. I'm sorry. I can't do it. That's all. And Sarah? Did she speak with her brother? Daniel's face darkened. Yes, too much. They went off together somewhere, talked for a long time. I forbade it, but Sarah, he sighed heavily. She's always been close to Jacob. After he left, she changed. She became quiet, withdrawn. I pray every night that she won't follow him. I need to talk to her, Isaac said, feeling his heartbeat quicken. Talk to her. Maybe she'll tell you more than she tells me. Daniel stood and fixed Isaac with a heavy gaze. I know what the council thinks, that Jacob stole the money. Maybe he did. I don't know. But if it's true, tell the bishop I'll work off every cent. Everyone. Sarah was in the barn when Isaac came in. He filled the doorway with his tall frame, and for a moment the air seemed to thicken. They had never spoken alone. That would have been improper. But the circumstances were different now. Sarah, he said quietly, I need to talk with you. She set the basket of eggs down slowly and turned. In the lantern light, her face looked even paler. About Jacob, she said, not as a question. Yes. A long pause. The cows shifted in their stalls, and a beam creaked somewhere above. What do you want to know? Her voice sounded tired, as if she'd already given up. Isaac stepped closer. He could smell hay and fresh milk, and beneath that a faint trace of lavender. He knew he should keep his distance, be official, but something in her eyes made him forget the rules. The truth, he said. Just the truth. Why did he come? Why did he go? And where is the money from the treasury? Sarah drew a sharp breath. Her hands clenched into fists. How do you know I know anything about the money? Because when your father talked about Jacob, you weren't surprised. You didn't burst into tears. You didn't protest. You just stood there watching as if you'd been waiting for it to happen. She turned away, and Isaac saw her shoulders tremble. Isaac, she whispered, if I tell you, will you have to tell the council? He hesitated. A deacon's duty was clear, truth above all. But when he looked at her, at that solitary, broken figure in the barn's dim light, something in him cried out for another way. It depends on what you tell me. Sarah faced him again. Her eyes shone, and Isaac couldn't tell whether it was tears or the flicker of the lamp. Then sit, she said. It's a long story, and when I'm done, you won't look at me the same. They sat on a wooden bench by the wall. The space between them was proper enough, but Isaac felt the warmth of her body, and that warmth scorched him. A year ago, Sarah began softly, staring at nothing in particular. Jakob started coming in secret. He brought me books and magazines and told me about the world. I knew it was wrong, but, Isaac, have you ever felt like you were suffocating? Like the walls of your room were closing in and the air was running out? Isaac was silent. He felt that every night. Jakob said that in the city people can be whoever they want. They can study, work, choose. That women there aren't just obedient wives and mothers, that they can be more. Her voice trembled. And one day he brought his friend, an Englishman named Michael. She fell silent, and the quiet grew almost unbearable. Michael was different. He spoke to me as if I mattered, not as Daniel Miller's daughter, not as a member of the community, but as a person, as Sarah, just Sarah. A tear slid down her cheek. I fell in love, so hard it hurt. We met in secret by the old mill. He promised he'd take me away when he could. He said he'd find a job, get an apartment, and then you would run away, Isaac finished, without judgment in his voice, only sorrow. Yes, but we needed money. For a ticket, to start a life. Michael said he was earning, but not enough. And she covered her face with her hands. God, how foolish I am. I told Jakob. Jakob got the money from the chest. We were supposed to meet at dawn on Wednesday, to run away together. But Michael didn't come. No. Her voice finally broke. He didn't come. I waited for 2 hours. Then I went to the place where he lived. Jakob had given me the address. Do you know what I found? An empty apartment. A neighbor woman said he'd left the night before, with all his things, and with the money, the community's money. Isaac said nothing, trying to take it all in. A storm raged inside him, anger at this Michael, pain for Sarah, fear of what he now had to do. And where is Jakob? He asked at last. Jakob, Sarah drew a deep breath. Jakob went to find Michael. He feels guilty. He brought him into my life. He promised he'd get the money back even if he had to work at a factory for the rest of his life. He's a good brother, even when I was the worst sister. And people think he just stole the money and ran. I know. Sarah lifted her eyes to Isaac, and in them was such deep sorrow that he nearly reached out to comfort her. What will you do, Isaac? Will you tell them? Isaac stood and paced the barn. He had been taught that truth was the foundation of the community, that lies destroyed everything. But if he told the truth, Sarah would be cast out. The community did not forgive such things. A girl who had planned to flee with an Englishman and had been the cause of a theft, there would be no place for her here. And suddenly he realized he didn't want her to go. The thought struck him like a bolt of lightning. He, Isaac Fisher, future deacon, a man who had devoted his life to God and the community, did not want this girl with the unruly eyes to leave his world. Isaac, Sarah called softly. He turned to her. I need to think, he said hoarsely. Give me time. How much time do I have? Until morning. The council will meet again after service tomorrow. Sarah nodded, accepting her fate. That night Isaac did not sleep. He lay on his simple bed, staring into the darkness, thoughts swarming like bees in a hive. He could simply tell the council everything he had heard. It would be right, it would be just. The money had been stolen, and the guilty should be punished. But who was guilty? Jakob, who wanted to help his sister. Sarah, who believed in love. Or the Englishman who toyed with her feelings and vanished. Or was the guilt in the very system that made people so desperate they would risk theft for the sake of freedom? Isaac pushed that thought aside. It was a dangerous path to doubt an order that had stood for centuries. The Amish lived as Christ commanded, in simplicity, apart from a sinful world, in peace and brotherhood. If everyone began to doubt, what would remain? But then why was there such pain in Sarah's eyes? Why did she say she was suffocating? He closed his eyes and tried to pray, but the words would not come. Instead, he heard her voice in his head. Have you ever felt like you were suffocating? Yes, he had. When the eastern sky began to lighten, Isaac made his decision. He rose, dressed, and left the house. His father still slept. Bishop Samuel always rose at 5. Isaac had a little time. He took the road to the miller's farm. The early September morning was cool, and the grass glittered with dew. The world seemed suspended in that special stillness that comes right before dawn, when night is not yet gone and day has not yet arrived. By the old oak on the edge of the farm, he saw her. Sarah sat on a wooden fence, wrapped in a shawl. She was not surprised when he appeared. "I knew you'd come," she said quietly. Isaac stepped closer and, at first, simply stood beside her. "Did you sleep?" "No. And you?" "Me neither." They were silent, watching the sun slowly rise over the horizon, painting the sky red and gold. "I've made a decision," Isaac said at last. Sarah tensed but didn't look at him. "I'm listening." "I won't tell them the whole truth," he said, his voice steady though everything inside him shook. "I'll say Jacob did take the money, that he wanted to start a new life in the city, that you knew nothing until after he was already gone, that he's now trying to repay the money by working there." Sarah turned to him sharply. "But why? Why are you doing this? You're risking everything. If anyone finds out you concealed the truth—" "I know the risk," Isaac cut in. "But tell me, Sarah, what kind of justice is it if they cast you out for loving, for dreaming of a different life? Is it a sin to want to be free?" Her eyes widened. You're not supposed to talk like that. You're the future deacon." "Maybe I'm not supposed to be one," he said, surprised by his own boldness. "Maybe I'm playing a role that doesn't fit me, like an actor in someone else's play." Sarah climbed down from the fence and came very close. Isaac felt a quickening heartbeat, his or hers, he could not tell. "Isaac Fisher," she whispered. "Who are you really? Behind all the rules, the humility, the submission, who are you?" He looked into her face, and suddenly all the walls he had built over the years began to crack. I don't know," he admitted, and the admission was the most frightening of his life. "I live as I was told to live. I believe what I was told to believe. But when I see you, Sarah, when I hear you talk about freedom and choice, something in me wakes up. Something I've tried to bury for so long." Tears ran down her face. "Don't do this," she whispered. "Don't destroy yourself for me. I'm not worth it." "How do you know what you're worth?" He couldn't help touching her hand. The touch burned them both. "Sarah, I want to tell you something. Something I shouldn't say. Something that goes against every rule and principle I've lived by." "Don't. I think about you all the time." The words poured out of him like water from a broken dam. "Every service I look for you with my eyes. Every night I pray for these thoughts to vanish, but they only get stronger. And yesterday, when you told me about that Englishman, about how you were going to run," his voice broke. "I hated him. Not for stealing the money, but because he could be with you. Because you wanted to leave with him." Sarah stared at him, unable to speak. "I have no right to these feelings," Isaac went on. "I know that. But they exist. And that's why I can't let them drive you out. Because if you leave," he swallowed hard, "the light will leave this place. At least for me." A long, endless pause. The sun rose higher, warming their faces. "You don't know me," Sarah whispered at last. "Not really. You see something in me, but I'm not who you think I am." "Then let me find out. Give me time to see who you are. And if what I tell you destroys what you feel, then let it destroy it. But I want the truth, Sarah. All of it. Not the acceptable version, not the one that won't offend. The real truth." Sarah stepped back and sat on the fence again. Isaac sat beside her. "Fine," she said after a long pause. "You want to know who I am? I'm a girl who hates every morning she wakes up here. I hate the sight of these hay-colored fields, these identical houses, these faces that never change. I hate that I was taught my only purpose is to be an obedient wife and have many children, that all my dreams, every desire, are sins." Her breathing was heavy, and Isaac could see how hard the honesty came. "When Michael talked about universities, about careers, about possibilities," she went on, For the first time, I felt I might have a future. Not just survival, but a real life. I wanted to study, Isaac. I wanted to read, learn about the world, maybe become a teacher or a writer. I write poems, in secret, on scraps of paper I then burn because I'm afraid someone will find them. Isaac listened, and with every word something in him shifted. He did not see a contemptible traitor. He saw a person suffocating just like him. Yes, Sarah continued more quietly, I wanted to run. And no, I don't regret that desire. I regret trusting the wrong person. I regret putting my brother in a terrible position. I regret stealing the money. But I don't regret wanting to be free. And if you tell me now that I'm awful, that I'm a sinner, that I don't belong among God-fearing people, then I'll understand. But I can't lie anymore. Not to you, not to myself. She fell silent, braced for disgust or condemnation. But Isaac simply watched the sunrise. When I was 16, he said at last, during Rumspringa, I went to Philadelphia, only for a day. My father allowed it. He said a young man should see the sinful world to understand how blessed our way is. It was the first time Sarah had heard this story, and she listened closely. I wandered the streets, Isaac continued, and walked into a library, a huge public library with thousands of books. I stood there for 4 hours, just stood and looked. All those books, all that knowledge, all those stories, and I could have read them all if I'd wanted to, if I'd been allowed. That day I realized how little I knew, how narrow my world was. He turned to Sarah. I came home and told my father I was ready for baptism, that I'd seen the world and chosen our path. But that was a lie. I chose fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of disappointing my father. Fear of being alone in a vast world where I knew nothing. And from that day on, I've lived with that choice, or rather, with the lack of one. Sarah took his hand her first time, touching him, and Isaac felt something in him finally break and, at the same time, begin to heal. What do we do, Isaac? She whispered. We're both trapped. You in a role you don't want to play. Me in a life that doesn't fit me. And now we know the truth about each other. What happens next? I don't know, he admitted. But at least we're not alone. At least in this. They sat like that, holding hands, while the sun climbed. Somewhere a rooster crowed, and the Amish world began another day, a day of work, prayer, and obedience. But for Isaac and Sarah, something had changed forever. Go, Sarah said at last. If they see you here, there will be questions. Tell the council your version. I'll confirm it if I have to. And after that, I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe we'll have to live as if this conversation never happened, as if we don't know the truth about each other. I can't, Isaac said with unexpected firmness. I can't look at you in church and pretend I feel nothing. I can't listen to the elders plan a marriage for you with someone else. Then what are you suggesting? Time, he said. Give us both time. I'll sort out the money situation, clear suspicion from you. Then we'll think, together. Sarah nodded, though doubt clouded her eyes. When Isaac left, she sat on the fence for a long time, watching him go. For the first time in many months, she felt something like hope, but also fear that hope might prove even crueler than despair. The council met after Sunday service at Bishop Samuel's house. Isaac came prepared. He had spent all of Saturday crafting his story, polishing every detail. He was about to lie to the community, to people he had trusted all his life. It was the hardest test of his faith. Isaac, Samuel began once everyone was seated. You spoke with the Millers. What did you learn? Isaac stood, as was customary, when reporting to the council. I spoke with Daniel and with Sarah, he began, careful to keep his voice even. Jacob was indeed with them for 2 days. He talked about returning, but Isaac paused as if gathering his thoughts. I believe he was lying, that the real reason for his visit was different. The money, one of the elders put in. Yes, Sarah said he seemed anxious, that he asked many questions about the community, about people, about how things are run. But most of all about finances. Who keeps the money when it's collected? how much there is. And she wasn't suspicious, Jonas King asked skeptically. She didn't see through it. She thought he was just curious, Isaac said, hating each word. Jacob has always been inquisitive, and when he left, she decided he simply couldn't handle the thought of returning, that life here proved too hard after years of freedom. And do you believe her? It was his father's voice, carrying a note that unsettled Isaac. Samuel had always been able to sense untruth. Isaac looked his father straight in the eye. Yes, father, I do. Sarah Miller is a faithful daughter of the community, perhaps a little quiet and withdrawn, but that's because of her brother's leaving. She took no part in the theft. She's a victim of Jacob's deception, as we all are. A long pause. Samuel didn't look away, and Isaac felt sweat run down his back beneath the heavy shirt. Very well, the bishop said at last. Then the matter is settled. Jacob Miller is a thief and an outcast. We will pray for his soul, but he is no longer a member of our community. Daniel will work off the debt over 2 years, we have already agreed. The case is closed. The other elders nodded their agreement, all except one. Old Amos Bear, the council's eldest member, watched Isaac with a curious expression. Something to say, Brother Amos? Samuel asked. No, the old man answered slowly. Nothing, only a strange feeling, as if we don't know the whole truth. Feelings aren't evidence, the bishop snapped. Isaac investigated thoroughly. There is nothing more to do. But as the council dispersed, Amos stopped Isaac at the door. Boy, he whispered, his aged eyes sharp, I've lived 83 years. I've seen a lot of lies and a lot of truth. And right now I see something in your eyes that troubles me. Isaac stiffened. I don't understand, Brother Amos. Oh, you do. You understand very well. The old man set a hand on Isaac's shoulder. I don't know what you're hiding, and maybe it's better I don't. But remember this, truth always comes out. Always. And when it does, it may destroy not only you, but those you're protecting. I'm protecting the community, Isaac said quietly. No, Amos shook his head. You're protecting someone in particular, and I pray that person is worthy of your sacrifice. He released Isaac and walked away, leaving him on the threshold with a stone of cold in his gut. One evening, 3 weeks after that talk by the oak, Isaac couldn't hold back. Waiting for dark, he went to the miller's farm. He knew it was madness. If someone saw him, there would be questions he couldn't avoid. But the need to see her, to hear her voice, had become a physical ache. Sarah was waiting by the barn. He hadn't sent any message, but she knew, as if some invisible line connected them. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, but her voice held more relief than reproach. I know. They stood in the building's shadow, hidden from the moonlight. The space between them was very small. How are you? Isaac asked. Surviving. My father barely speaks to me. My mother cries at night. They think I don't hear, but I do. They're afraid I'll follow Jacob. And do you want to? A long pause. I don't know, Sarah said honestly. Sometimes, yes. Sometimes it feels like anything would be better than this. But then, she lifted her eyes to him. Then I think about what you said, that if I go, the light will leave this place, and something in me doesn't want to leave you in the dark. Isaac reached out and touched her face. The touch was forbidden, impossible, but he couldn't help himself. Sarah closed her eyes and leaned her cheek into his palm. What will become of us, Isaac? She whispered. We can't be together here, but I can't leave not knowing what will happen to you. Then don't go, he said, his voice rough. Stay. We'll find a way. What way? You'll become a deacon. They'll marry you to someone suitable, obedient, proper, and I'll watch you build a life with another woman. You'll have children who will never know their father once had other dreams. What if I refuse? Sarah's eyes flew open. What? What if I tell them I don't want to be a deacon, he swallowed hard, that I'm not sure of my path? They'll destroy you. Your father. I know what my father will do, But maybe it is time to stop this game, to stop pretending. Sarah grabbed his hands. Do not do this for me. Please. I will not be able to live with the fact that you destroyed your life because of me, because of my selfish desires. It is not selfishness, Isaac said firmly. It is honesty. For the first time in my life, real honesty. I am tired of lying. To myself, to God, to the community. I am tired of being someone I am not. But what will you do? Where will you go? I do not know. He smiled, and there was a strange freedom in that smile. And you know what? For the first time in my whole life, that uncertainty does not frighten me. It sets me free. They stood like that, holding each other in the dark, until Sarah's mother's voice called from the house. Sarah pulled away sharply. Go, quickly. Isaac nodded and started into the darkness, but at the last moment he turned back. Sarah, I love you. I do not know if it is right or wrong, but it is the truth. And he disappeared into the night, leaving Sarah standing with her hand over a heart that was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from her chest. Everything fell apart 2 weeks later when Jacob returned unexpectedly. He appeared in the community in the morning, exhausted, dirty, but with a determined look on his face. In his hands he held an envelope. I want to speak to the council, he announced, standing in the middle of the main street where people were gathering for the morning market. The news spread instantly. Within half an hour, the council had gathered in the bishop's house, and Jacob stood before them, holding his envelope. I came back to return what I took, he said without introduction. In here are $2,800. It is everything I was able to put together in this time. I will pay back the rest within 1 year. Samuel took the envelope and counted the money. His face was unreadable. Where did this money come from, Jacob? I worked construction, 2 shifts a day. I slept 4 hours. And you came back to give it back? Yes. Why? Jacob lifted his head, and everyone saw the fire in his eyes. Because my sister is taking the blame on herself. Because people are whispering behind her back. Because she is suffering for my sin, and I cannot stand it anymore. The silence was oppressive. Isaac felt the blood drain from his face. What do you mean, for your sin? Samuel asked slowly. I mean that Sarah is not guilty, that I took the money not for myself, but for her, that I brought into her life a man who broke her, that if not for me, she would never have thought about running away. The elders murmured. Isaac clenched his fists, knowing what was about to be said. Tell everything, Samuel ordered. And Jacob told it. The whole truth. About Michael, about their plans, about how Sarah fell in love and believed in the possibility of another life. About how he, Jacob, stole the money thinking he was helping his sister. About how Michael disappeared with the money, leaving them both with broken hearts and a crushing weight of guilt. When he finished, Samuel slowly turned to Isaac. Did you know about this? Isaac could not lie. Not now, with the truth lying on the table, naked and painful. Yes, he said quietly. Since when? Sarah told me that evening when I came to investigate. Samuel's face turned to stone. And you hid this from the council? You lied to us? I did not lie. I just did not tell the whole truth. That is the same thing. The bishop exploded, and for the first time in his life, Isaac saw his father truly enraged. You took an oath to serve the truth. You were preparing to become a deacon, and instead you chose, what? To protect a girl who was about to run away with an Englishman? I chose to protect a person who was suffering, Isaac answered, rising to his feet. A person who made a mistake, but did not deserve banishment. A person whom you love. Amos Bear interrupted him quietly. All eyes turned to Isaac. He stood before the council, before his father, before the people he had known his whole life, and he felt the ground open beneath his feet. Yes, he said at last, and in that word was all his truth, all his pain, all his hope. I love her, and that is why I could not allow her life to be destroyed for a mistake she never intended to make. Samuel closed his eyes as if he had been struck physically. Get out, he whispered. "Father." "Get out!" the bishop thundered, and Isaac flinched. "And you too, Jacob. The council must discuss this in private." When they left, Isaac saw Sarah standing by the house, pale as death. Jacob went straight to her and embraced her. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I could not keep silent any longer." "You should not have come back," Sarah said, tears in her voice. "Now they will drive out both of us, and Isaac too." Isaac walked up to them. "Do not regret it," he said, looking at Sarah. "The truth is always better than a lie, even when it hurts. But now you will lose everything. Your future, your role, your father's respect. I will lose what I never wanted," Isaac cut her off. "And I may find what I have been looking for my whole life." They stood together, waiting for the council to decide. People from the community gathered around, whispering, pointing. Isaac saw disappointment in some eyes, condemnation in others, compassion in a few. At last the door opened. Samuel stood on the threshold, and his face was like a mask. "The council has reached a decision," he said in an official tone. "Jacob Miller, you have returned most of the money and confessed your guilt. Therefore, your punishment will be softened. You may remain in the community on a probationary term if you agree to public repentance and full submission to the rules." Jacob nodded. "Sarah Miller," Samuel continued, and his voice trembled just slightly, "you were going to leave the community but did not do so. You did not steal yourself, but you were an accomplice. The council has decided that you must undergo a period of Maidon the shunning for 6 months. After that, if you demonstrate true repentance, you may be accepted back." Sarah lowered her head, accepting the sentence. "And as for you, Isaac," Samuel fell silent, and everyone saw how hard the next words were for him. "You lied to the council. You hid the truth. You broke the trust we placed in you. And worst of all, you confessed feelings for a woman who is not your wife, who has not even been baptized as a full member of the community." He paused, breathing heavily. "The council has decided unanimously. You can no longer be a deacon. Furthermore, you must undergo public repentance and a period of reflection. If after that you prove your devotion to our way, you may be accepted back as an ordinary member of the community. But your future as a leader is over." Isaac stood motionless. He had expected this, but hearing the words aloud still hurt. And at the same time, there was relief. At last, he did not have to wear that mask. "I accept the council's decision," he said clearly, "but I want to say something." "Isaac, do not." "I want to say it." Isaac's voice was steady. "My whole life I tried to be the perfect son, the perfect member of the community, the perfect servant of God. I kept every rule, fulfilled every duty, suppressed every doubt. But do you know what I realized?" He looked around at the gathered people. "I realized that a God who demands we strangle all our desires, all our dreams, all our feelings, that is not a loving God. That is a God of fear, and I do not want to live in fear anymore." "Isaac," Samuel exclaimed, but his son went on. "Yes, I love Sarah Miller. I love her for her courage to dream of more, for her honesty in admitting her mistakes, for her strength to endure judgment. And if that is a sin, then I am a sinner. But if loving a good person is a sin, then what is a virtue?" The silence was absolute. Even the children who had been running nearby went quiet. "I am not leaving the community," Isaac said more softly. "At least not today. I will go through your repentance if I must. But I will not renounce what I feel. I will not renounce my true self. Because if our faith demands that we stop being human, then it is not faith, it is a prison." He turned and walked away, leaving the community in shock. After a second's hesitation, Sarah followed him, and then Jacob. The days that followed were the hardest of Isaac's life. His father did not speak to him. His mother cried constantly. People in the community avoided his gaze. Someone spat at his feet in the street. The children he had been teaching carpentry no longer came. Sarah was living through the Maidon the shunning. That meant no one in the community could eat at the same table with her, speak to her unless absolutely necessary, or touch her. She became a ghost among the living. Her mother set her food separately at the edge of the table. Her father no longer looked at her. Even the children on the street ran away when she approached. But the hardest part was that she could not see Isaac. The rules of the Maidung were strict. No contact with those under repentance. One evening, when the pain of loneliness became unbearable, she went to the old mill, the place where she had once met Michael, the place of her mistake. And there she found Isaac. He was sitting by the stream, tossing small stones into the water. When he heard her steps, he turned, and everything flashed across his face: joy, pain, fear, hope. "You should not be here," he said, but he did not move. "I know." Sarah sat beside him, leaving a decent distance between them. "But if they are already judging me, then at least let there be something to judge me for." They sat in silence, listening to the water. "How are you?" Isaac asked at last. "Surviving, and you?" "Same." Silence again. "Isaac," Sarah began quietly, "I have been thinking a lot these last days. About us, about the future, about everything, and I have reached a conclusion." He turned to her, waiting. "We need to go. Both of us. Together." Isaac froze. "Are you sure?" "No," she answered honestly. "I am scared to death. But I know one thing. We have no future here. Even if we go through repentance, even if they take us back, we will always be the ones who betrayed, the ones who cannot be trusted. We will live under constant watch, under constant judgment. That is not life, Isaac. It is a slow death of the soul." He knew she was right. But to leave meant abandoning everything. Parents, home, the only world he had ever known. "What if we cannot make it?" he asked softly. "What if the outside world turns out to be too hard?" "Then at least we will be together." Sarah took his hand. "At least we will try. I do not want to reach 40 and wonder, what if? I do not want to look at you across the community on Sunday services and see another man's wife beside you and know that we both chose safety over happiness." Isaac squeezed her hand. "When?" "In 1 week. On Sunday, during the service, when everyone will be in church. Jacob will help. He knows how to live out there. He will find us a place, help us find work." "Is Jacob going with us?" "No. He said his place is here, that he has to repay the community to earn his parents' forgiveness. But he will help us get started." They sat holding hands, watching the moon rise above the trees, and in that quiet, a decision was made that would change their lives forever. The week passed in a fog. Isaac packed little by little, a few shirts, pants, shoes, a little money he had saved. Sarah did the same. They told no one about their plans, not even each other, afraid that if they spoke them aloud, reality would shatter their resolve. On Saturday evening, Isaac sat a long time in his room, looking at the things that had surrounded him his whole life. The simple wooden bed his grandfather had made, the chair on which he had learned to read the Bible, the window from which he had seen the fields his family had worked for 5 generations. Suddenly, the door opened. Samuel walked in. Father and son looked at each other in taut silence. "You are going to leave," Samuel said. It was not a question. Isaac could not lie. "Not now." "Yes." "With her." "Yes." A long pause. Somewhere downstairs, a clock ticked, measured and relentless. "I have prayed every night," Samuel whispered at last. "I asked God to show me where I went wrong, what I did wrong raising you. You were the perfect son, Isaac. Perfect. And now—" "Father," Isaac interrupted, sitting down across from him, "you did nothing wrong. You loved me. You taught me. You gave me everything you could give. But you gave me a path that was your path, not mine. It is the only right path. For you, yes, but not for me." Isaac looked his father in the eyes. "Tell me honestly, have you ever doubted, ever felt there is something more than these fields, this community, these rules?" Samuel looked away. "Every person has temptations. That does not mean we should give in to them." "What if they are not temptations? What if they are simply another way to God? Do you truly believe the creator of the universe wants everyone to love him in exactly the same way? That there is only one right way to live? The Bible says. The Bible says many things, Isaac interrupted gently, and different people read it differently. Our ancestors chose this way 200 years ago, and that was their choice. Holy, sincere, right for them. But why cannot my choice be just as holy? Samuel shook his head, and Isaac saw tears in his father's eyes. Because if I accept that, the bishop whispered, then everything I have believed, everything I have devoted my life to, loses its meaning. No, father. Isaac reached out and set his hand on his father's shoulder. It will have meaning for you, for mother, for those who truly believe in this way, but not for me. And if you truly love me, you will let me find my own way. They sat like that for a long time. Father and son, so alike and yet so different. I cannot bless you, Samuel said at last, his voice broken. The council will not allow it. The community will not understand. I know. But the old man stood and embraced his son. For the first time in years, they embraced for real, not formally. But I want you to know, whatever happens, wherever you are my son, and a part of my heart will always be with you. Isaac felt tears run down his cheeks. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. On Sunday morning, the community gathered for the service, as always. Isaac and Sarah sat in their places, listening to the hymns, the prayers, the sermon. Everything was as always, and yet completely different. When the service ended and people began to disperse, Isaac and Sarah slipped away quietly. Jacob waited for them by the old mill with a small car he had asked a friend to help. Everything is ready, he said softly. In town, there is a small room I rented for 1 month. There are contacts of people who help those who leave the Amish. They will find you work, help with documents. Isaac and Sarah got into the car. For both of them, it was the first time. The feeling was strange, frightening, and thrilling at once. Jacob, Sarah took her brother's hand. Thank you for everything. Be happy, little sister. That is all I want. The car pulled away, and Isaac watched out the window as the world he had known his whole life slowly receded. The fields, the farms, the wooden houses without electricity, people in black clothing, horses and buggies. All of it fell behind. Sarah took his hand. Do you regret it? She asked quietly. Isaac looked at her face no longer hidden under a bonnet, at her hair lifting in the wind from the open window, at her eyes full of fear and hope. No, he said, and realized it was true. I do not regret it. For the first time in my life, I do not regret. Isaac opened the door of the small apartment on the 3rd floor of a building in Lancaster. He was tired after a 10-hour shift at the furniture factory, but when he saw Sarah reading at the table, the weariness faded. How was it? She asked, getting up to kiss him. Good. The foreman said that starting next month, he is raising my pay. He took off his work shoes. And are you finished? Sarah smiled and showed him the papers on the table. Yes, I passed the last exam. Officially, in 2 months, I will be a certified teacher's aide. Isaac hugged her and lifted her off the floor. I am so proud of you. They did not lie to themselves. The 2 years had been hard. In the first months, Isaac did not know how to use a phone, how to drive a car, how to find his way in the city. Sarah cried at night, missing her parents, the familiar faces. They argued, made peace, learned to be a couple in a world with no ready-made rules. But they also laughed. They went to the movies and marveled at the magic on the screen. They opened books they had dreamed about. They found friends among others who had left the Amish. They built a life that was their choice. A letter came from Jacob, Sarah said as they sat down to dinner. And what does he write? That father is sick. Not seriously, but he is getting older. Jacob asks whether we want to visit them. Isaac fell silent, thinking, do you want to? I do not know. It is scary. What will they say? How will they look at us? Maybe it is time to find out. A month later, they stood by the Fisher farm. Isaac knocked on the door. His mother opened it, and her face showed the whole range of emotions: shock, joy, pain, love. "Isaac," she whispered, and she hugged her son, ignoring the rules. Samuel came out slowly. He had truly grown older, but his eyes were as penetrating as ever. Father and son looked at each other. "Dad," Isaac began, "we are not asking for a blessing. We are not asking you to accept our choice, but we would like for you to know that we are alive, that we are happy." Samuel nodded slowly. "Come in. Your mother has made lunch." It was not a reconciliation. It was not an acknowledgement, but it was a step, a small, careful step toward understanding. At the table, they spoke about their life carefully, avoiding details that might wound. The parents listened, and Isaac saw in their eyes a mixture of longing and acceptance. When they were leaving, Samuel held his son back at the door. "Are you truly happy?" he asked quietly. Isaac looked at Sarah waiting for him by the car, at the sun shining in her hair, at her smile. "Yes, Dad, I am truly happy." "Then perhaps your God and my God are not so different. Maybe he wants happiness for us, each in our own way." They embraced briefly, but sincerely. As the car drove away, Sarah took Isaac's hand. "It was the right choice," she said. "Everything we went through, everything we lost, it was worth it." "Do you know what is the strangest thing?" Isaac smiled. "I thought freedom was the absence of rules. But in truth, freedom is the ability to choose your rules, your values, your life, and whom to love." "And whom to love," he agreed. They drove along a road that led from the past to the future, from fear to hope, from someone else's life to their own. And though the road was unknown, they were not afraid, because they were walking it together. Beneath the black hat Isaac had once worn hid a man afraid to be himself. But now, under the open sky, he had finally found freedom. The hardest, most frightening, most beautiful freedom to be real. The end. Hit like, and don't forget to subscribe. The next story will be even more intense. But if you are under 18, don't even think about clicking next.